Welcome to episode 10 of Consensus Unreality. Woo! Yep, double digits. We are here today with Charles Lieurance, the author and sort of curator of In Search of Pagan Hollywood, which you can find on Facebook and Twitter. And I guess, is it still going to be a book? Hi, Charles. Thanks for coming on.
Hi, you guys. It's nice to be here. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us.
Right now, there are so many books in the works here. I don't really know what to say about that.
Yeah.
My publisher for the In Search of Pagan Hollywood book died.
Oh wow! Yeah.
So now I'm trying to mark. I already got paid for that though, so I need to I just need to work out another deal at some point.
Right.
I have a book coming out about silent movie monkey superstars.
Wow. Awesome.
There were a lot more of them than you would think.
Yeah.
That were during the silent movie era.
Huh.
And especially Joe Martin is kind of the focus of the book, who's an orangutan that they kept referring to as a chimpanzee and a monkey, even though.
Right. Yeah.
Are you
But he had a series of movies and had a very star-studded wedding.
Wow. Yeah.
If you can believe it. And then I have a book called Altar of Eros, and you guys have probably seen that feature on my Twitter page. That's just going to be the confluence of sex and mythology, religion, and postcards from 1910-ish.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I've been looking at those. You'll post those like once a week? Is that? I see those coming.
I do that once a day.
Oh, is it once a day? Wow.
Yeah. The weekly is the Black Mass of the week.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, I love all that stuff. It helps get you through the week with something to look forward to.
Yeah. I only need one, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you think you're pioneering the genre of documenting chimpanzee actors in Hollywood?
I'm going to just say yes.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I don't know of any other. This book is, as far as I know, unique. I mean, someone can respond on my Twitter page or on my Facebook page if they feel I've wronged them in some way.
Right.
But I think this is kind of a unique work. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, sounds like it. So I guess we should just jump into In Search of Pagan Hollywood. And could we ask you first off, how did you get interested in this subject and sort of the decadence and the occult revival, especially in film? I guess we're interested in that point in history and that sort of intersection that led to these topics too.
Well, the fact that you even know that it's an intersection with capital D decadence, and film shows probably much more than a lot of the readers on Facebook do.
Yeah, I think
sometimes I don't feel like relating to that in any way, so I just post whatever.
Right.
But it's very good that you guys picked that up.
Yeah, I think we both have an interest in decadence and where it comes into film. Yeah.
And well, here's the deal. I started a page that's still incredibly popular, even though I haven't posted on it in over a year, called Decaying Hollywood Mansions.
Yeah.
Which is still has, I think, 250,000 followers.
Wow.
Even though I don't ever do anything on it. But I started that, and it became really annoying. I just my art history background and things like it wasn't very satisfying. I needed to kind of go into my own little niche and be able to wallpaper it with occult things and decadent art and symbolist art and pictorialist art and not have anybody yell at me.
Yeah.
So I just sort of abandoned that page. And like I say, it keeps growing. I don't know why.
Yeah, well,
that was in the 10, I think. And then in 2015, I decided to start In Search of Pagan Hollywood, and it just gave me a lot more leeway for the things that I could post.
Right.
And I liked the jokey title. I sort of made I used that Sun International's In Search of Ancient Astronauts.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome.
It's just kind of, I mean, I don't know if I'm really searching for anything, but it looks like I'm searching because it's such a broad base of items that I post.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have an interest in sort of like decadence in art and literature before the sort of film interest, or did those things kind of come together, or how did that work out? I
guess I've always been interested in film.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up at a time when there were all kinds of silent film showings for hippies, kind of stoner Theta Bera. Well, not Theta Bera since their films are lost, but a lot of older movies shown in kind of rundown theaters, and my father would take me to see them.
Awesome. Yeah.
And it was, nothing but just stoners as far as the eye could see. And so it was great kind of having that, being introduced to silent film in this trippy kind of way.
Yeah.
And that's really stuck with me. And then also Shakey's Pizza, I'd like to do a shout out to them. They used to show silent films, usually the truncated 8mm prints, Super 8. And it's the first time I saw Phantom of the Opera with Lon Chaney, and just lots of early horror films I saw in the truncated form of Shakey's Pizza. So film, I think, my father was very into movies, and we could bond over going to see films. But I'd say probably the decadent literature, the painting thing, that's more an early college development.
For sure,
like 1979, 80, when I started to read Huysmans and Mirbeau and I had that's when I kind of had this awakening to that literature and started to dress like a dandy, even though I didn't really pull it off very well.
Yeah.
I'm glad I gave that up quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're about like under 10 minutes in.
Yeah. Cool. So that's like, where do you see that sort of French occult revival kind of stuff? Do you see that in most of these, in the sort of pagan films that you're focusing on, or do you see like a broader range? What do you think?
There's a broad range. The range would be more like, as we jump, pictorialist photography like William Mortensen and people like that, where they use kind of a witchy environment or a mythological environment. What's the woman photographer? I can't come up with her name, but those pictorialist photographers would just, took pictures of stories, of narratives, basically, and it's fun how much that transferred into early film.
Right.
You get things like the god Pan crawling out of a fireplace in a silent movie, and just all these mythical figures, and it's very much symbolist and pictorialist in nature, many of these early films. And also they were considered, most films that covered that were considered pretty immoral at the time,
right?
In the 1916 to 1920. And they were actually called morbid films if you look at old film magazines. And that just was sort of broad reaching for any film that included insanity, pan, suicide, all these things that the decadents took, very seriously.
Right. Yeah.
And of course, Orientalism, which is one of my favorite things in early cinema.
Oh yeah.
All the probably the greatest example ever is Mask of Fu Manchu, but there were many great silent films too that use this. It's sort of a fake dream of the Orient.
Right. Totally.
Yeah, that idea of like exotica is really interesting, and how that permeates sort of the depictions of the occult as well, and spiritualism. And I think like also the rise of spiritualism at that time
absolutely
is really interesting.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a great film, like I believe it's called Was Conan Doyle Right? Spiritualism that comes from as far as I know, no copies of it exist anymore, but there's some wonderful posters and stills.
Yeah. I think I probably saw that on your blog.
Basically concerns, spiritualism from that period.
Right.
Yeah. Do you think there's like a connection in like at least the psyche of that era between like this new technology of capturing moving image and, some sort of spiritual, like, do you think that's a necessary connection up from the time?
Well, in the films I like,
yeah,
the magic of cinema, of the technique of especially special effects techniques seem to be used in a pictorialist, symbolist fashion. I mean, there were tons of ghosts walking through this, people disappearing. Right. I mean, all these like what we would consider pretty naive tricks now, but I still think are just lovely. I think they're just beautiful to look at. Or double exposures of, phantoms coming in and out, or hands rising out of walls.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just, those are miracles to me. I mean, I just watch them and I get shivers up my spine.
Yeah, I do. I mean, having been watching some more of that kind of stuff lately, it strikes so much more, I don't know, like, it's more beautiful than sort of whatever it is that people are doing today to get those kinds of effects across.
And a lot of that is because, I mean, to be fair with people now, a lot of the silent filmmakers were in touch with the art of their time. I mean, they'd grown up on symbolist art, on pictorialist art.
Oh yeah.
So they wanted to just make it move.
Right. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't, and it's kind of. What was my thought there? I think a lot of these, there weren't very many decadent figures that made it into cinema, unfortunately. But we do have one that was very important, D'Annunzio, Gabriele D'Annunzio.
Yeah.
He was an Italian decadent who wrote some. Triumph of Death is just amazing if you haven't read it.
Yeah.
But he actually wound up working in the movie industry and becoming a fascist and lots of other things. Yeah. There's a lot of downsides to D'Annunzio. I happen to just love his books.
Right. Yeah.
He also wrote and produced several films, Cabiria probably being the most famous. And Cabiria is just it was one of the most expensive films ever made in Italy, and it's a stunner still. I've been wondering why there hasn't been a beautiful restoration of that film. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. Have you seen that, Dave? No. Yeah,
it's even the copy I have, and I really searched for the best copies. Isn't very good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess that's the whole lost. Like so many of these films being lost is something that I find really fascinating as well. I mean, sad, but too. Yeah.
And as you can tell, if you've seen the Facebook page, I'm obsessed with stills from lost films.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of people get upset, like, why would you show us this? Let's watch the movie.
Yeah.
And that doesn't figure into it. I think it's amazing to see these stills.
Right. It's kind of like tantalizing by definition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Are you also interested in sort of the fogginess of where the culture of Hollywood sort of infects the films themselves and the personalities and maybe the literal decadence of Hollywood at that time? Like
you guys are asking all the right questions.
Well, I mean, yeah.
The part of the subtitle to the Facebook page and to the book includes the words Hollywood Gothic, which Hollywood Gothic is where the decadent style meets this whole genre of films. Sunset Boulevard, Curtis Harrington's films, lots of books by Horace McCoy, and they're basically what you get from Southern Gothic, which is a grotesque view of a certain culture, but the culture they're surveying is Hollywood. So you get these, all those Hag and Crone films from the 60s, like Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Yep.
But so many of those take place in a sort of Hollywood, a Hollywood milieu, and they're incredibly grotesque, and really show just these old stars broken down in these these might as well be haunted mansions.
Right. Yeah.
And just really, another great one is The Loved One, the Tony Richardson film.
Yeah.
which is one of my all-time favorites.
Awesome.
Based on an Aldous Huxley. No, that's not right. It's based on an Evelyn Waugh film.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, one of my favorite. I guess it's later. It's more like, I don't know if it's exploitation or whatever, but Simon King of the Witches. That's a.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I love that movie. Yeah.
That's a great film. I love it too. And I'm just obsessed with all these, these occult rituals in these films. And Simon King of the Witches has a really good one.
Yeah, I love it.
When it has some really fine ones. The nude lady sitting laying on a beer with a skull on her chest saying, "Don't touch me, I'm a religious object."
Yeah. Yeah,
one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah, that's a wild movie. I mean, and I guess there's like lore that was based on that Hollywood Los Angeles guy Poke Runyon, who's like a relatively like well-known occultist. Who knows if that's actually true? But like I love
Well, it makes. I mean, I've been to LA and it's pretty, and lived in LA for a while, and it's pretty. Those characters exist. Yeah, there's
totally.
No, I mean, if nothing else, Kenneth Anger fits the bill.
Totally.
Yeah. I wanted to ask about Anger and if that was like a big influence on your work.
He blew me away when I saw his films in college. I'm obsessed with his films.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, finally, on Decaying Hollywood Mansions, if I posted anything by Kenneth Anger, all I'd get is what a liar he was in Hollywood Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't care about that.
Yeah.
Because once you've seen those films, it doesn't really matter anymore.
Right.
Right.
They're beautiful films.
They're just, and I swear to God, Invocation. No, not. What's the big one? Invocation of.
Demon Brother.
Demon Brother.
No,
or Lucifer Rising.
Inauguration of the Pleasure Dome.
Oh, Pleasure Dome. Yeah.
That film, I swear, is different every time I watch it.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I watch that film, I feel like something is in the wrong place or has been moved. I feel like I'm in a haunted house. I feel like someone's just moving all the furniture every once in a while. Now that can't possibly be true,
right?
But it's how I feel about the film. Like where I think something is when the film is in my head is never quite where it's at.
Right. Yeah.
Once I watch the film.
Yeah. Do you think there are like haunted films in that way, or like, at least like films that have the air of that?
Certainly. I mean, there are films that just seem off, that seem like there's something happening beyond the film itself. And I don't know, some of that can be very intentionally done. You can make a film that's just so off. Something like Carnival of Souls when you first watch it.
Sure.
You're not sure, everything just seems off.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be more specific with your question, Kenneth Anger's films seem as close to ritual as films can get.
Yep. Especially Lucifer.
And Curtis Harrington shorts affect me similarly. Like what's the Wormwood Star. Curtis Harrington's Wormwood Star is another one where I just feel like there's a ritual going on, and it doesn't have as much to do with movies as it does with something in the ether.
Yeah. Do you know? I mean, what do you think of like abstract? Do you like Jordan Belson, like the abstract kind of like?
I'm gonna sound kind of idiotic here, but I like them when the themes are when they're either so trippy I can't deny them, or when the themes are semi-occult or spiritual. Yeah. I mean, when people are just, I mean, like I said, there are certainly abstract films that are just so trippy that I feel like they fit into my aesthetic pretty easily, just by virtue of being so beautiful to look at.
Right.
But things like Harry Smith, that's what really kind of lose me.
Totally.
That's just everything,
Yeah.
Right.
Where you get this trippiness, but then this, interest in the occult.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah, I love Harry Smith stuff.
And drugs had so much to do with especially the underground films of the 50s and 60s.
Right. Yeah.
That they almost can't help but be decadent, you know?
Yeah.
There's just a red, purple velvet texture to all of them that always makes me very happy.
Yeah. Do you know of any films that like realistically employed occult practices? Like I know, for example, Herzog's Heart of Glass, like the cast was under hypnosis. I think, yeah.
Well, there are a lot of rumors. Obviously, the most popular rumor is the Rosemary's Baby that Anton LaVey was somehow involved in.
Right.
In making that authentic. It's completely untrue. There was even a rumor that he played the goat. He was the one on top of the affair.
Right.
Untrue. I mean, all of that was untrue. And Maxine Sanders and Gerald Sanders seem to have something to do with the Sharon Tate movie Eye of the Beholder, because there's a photo of the Sanderses with Sharon Tate and the film's director doing a ritual. But a lot of that could just be publicity.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
They could have just, we're making this film and look who we have on board. You're going to want to see it because it's authentic. And
sure. Yeah.
But as far as just like, I mean, I think the closest we come again is Kenneth Anger.
Right.
Yeah.
Where you actually see rites being performed. A lot of those are a little goofy because he's working for the visual, not,
Right.
A lot of occult practices are disciplined and take time.
Yeah.
So he tends to go for the most beautiful moments of these rituals.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think as far as I know, I'm going to say there may be underground films that certainly are,
sure.
are pitched are somehow motivated and actually managed to be some sort of ritual.
Yeah.
But I couldn't say anything specifically.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like Polanski's involvement in Rosemary's Baby and sort of like the whole saga of the Manson murders just makes it one of the scariest movies of all time. I
agree. The confluence of events is just, the connections. It's really endless,
Yeah.
I mean, from 60s drugs, 60s occultism to, it just, all the players and characters have touched on so many different forms of culture that it's just, it's crazy. It's my favorite film by far.
Yeah.
Wild.
And I probably watch it. I watch it way too often. Everyone says so.
Yeah. It's a great film.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's, I feel like it's some sort of vortex of all the things I love from that period.
Right.
Yeah.
And the bad acid, and I just feel like it's all there.
Yeah.
The bad acid 60s are the only 60s as far as I'm concerned. So.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Give me the Stones and forget the Beatles.
Nice. Yeah.
Except the White Album.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's bad. Good, bad, like lovely bad. Yeah.
I also got thinking, so if we're going back to sort of the decadence and the relationship to the portrayal of the occult in films, one that sticks out to me is The Seventh Victim that isn't very decadent. Have you seen that one?
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah. I was wondering if you had more examples of films that you felt sort of portrayed the occult in a more unassuming or like, just a more kind of realistic way as opposed to like, so loud or something.
Oh, I wish I would have thought about that more. I think there's, let's see. I really like films where the occultism just kind of comes out of, like you're not even sure what these people are, but it's even more sinister not to know, like in
Right.
Seventh Victim. Night of the Demon kind of has that, but then it has that stupid demon.
Yeah.
That kind of ruins it.
Yeah.
Because, it's wonderful just seeing him perform as a clown at a birthday party. And
right.
There's a great cat birthday party in the Sentinel, too, that's kind of amazing.
Yep.
That actually seems like more of a witch's Sabbath than a cat birthday.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of other films. There's certainly others where the occultism seems so subsumed by the, just under the surface of everything.
Yep.
And I'm having trouble pinpointing one. I guess I should have
well,
brought a list.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it kind of seems like the seventh victim and maybe the others that Luton produced are sort of singular in that way of just being like dreadful, but the occultism is just in the background,
Right.
Yeah.
Like that meeting of occultists and Seventh Victim is just,
Yeah.
You turn down the sound and you're just watching, a really boring upper crust cocktail party.
Right. And
yeah.
Rosemary's Baby kind of has that too, where the cabal is sort of just this goofy group of upper echelon people.
Yeah, I always love. I mean, I used to do blog posts. I have a blog called Roman and Minnie's. What is it? Occult cocktail party.
Wow. Yeah.
And I used to post this pictures of the people at the people that hang out with witches. Like
right.
These. The Devil Rides Out has a fun scene at the beginning where you're just looking at these people going, how did they get involved in occultism?
Oh, when's that one from?
There's only always one Asian guy with a camera. Just always
yeah,
says, I
that's
don't
one of
know
those.
why.
Yeah, one of those like tropes, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, but there's always a guy in a turban.
Right.
There's always and then there's these always just wonderful old character actresses, these old ladies who are all just wonderful to look at.
Yeah.
And I love one of my favorites is the old lady and the old man in Blood on Satan's Claw, who are beating on the drums and just lecherously staring at this couple having sex on an altar in front of them.
Yeah.
I just love looking at these faces.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
Because is there anything more scary than a lecherous 90-year-old?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's definitely up there.
In public, at home they can do what they want, but,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about Sunset Boulevard too, and how it seems like Sunset Boulevard's sort of began this trajectory of like Hollywood underbelly films, and to me it inspired Lynch has talked about Sunset Boulevard a ton, I think, and it just builds this thread. What are some other films that you see that sort of were the forerunners of creating a new language in that way?
Well, to be fair, there were these actor films of there were mostly parodies in silent films of silent film actresses, and they were already vamping it up and living in these castles. It is, if you don't mind, I'm going to digress a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
This idea of these huge mansions, it's kind of funny. There's a delineating line between like these silent film actresses who all wanted to be Sarah Bernhardt and sleep in coffins, and people wanted to pretend they all had like some sort of relationship to the occult, like Theda Bara and Valeska Surratt, and there are all these actresses, and they do interviews where they talk about the occultism of it, and you can pretty much tell like publicity department did it, that these had nothing to do with Theda Bara or Valeska Surratt,
right?
But these people all lived in mansions, the mansion. But it's funny how quickly that changes when the Hays Code comes in.
Yeah.
Like suddenly all the houses you see in movie magazines look like something you'd live in.
Right.
They're just sort of better than way better than average ranch houses. And so it's kind of funny that they took away the whole, that they didn't want these stars to look like they were doing as well as they were doing. But yet somehow in the teens and 20s, we sort of wanted our stars to live in these palatial, haunted castles.
Yeah.
And after the Hays Code, we wanted them to be just like us, and that just like us thing I find pretty dull.
Yeah. Totally.
But that goes into there were parodies of those that kind of star in the teens and 20s, even while it was going on. Stars that would just, sort of glide ghostly through their mansions. And so you get a taste of it kind of early. It doesn't all kind of start with Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah.
But that definitely nails it down. Like, this is the Hollywood Gothic.
Yeah.
Before that, there had been books that had certainly, played with the idea of these, of these old starlets, just completely tucked away in their ghostly mansions. But definitely that's the film that nailed down, hey, okay, this is what in film is going to be the Hollywood Gothic from now on.
Yeah.
And I would put in the same league Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Another just terrifying film about Hollywood.
Yeah. So what do you think of, something that people right now do a lot is sort of this analysis, this sort of conspiratorial analysis of, like, especially Kubrick and Lynch. What do you think of that sort of, like, trying to, like these filmmakers are trying to say something about the world? What do you think of that kind of, like, that approach? It's not, like, usually, like, a film scholar approach. It's more of, like, trying to decode, like, what is happening in the real world by looking at these films. Do you know what I mean?
I will if you tell me Kubrick that you had in mind.
Well, of course, there's The Shining, but then also Eyes Wide Shut.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Kubrick was a little too icy to have been trying to decode much of anything, and I feel like he's a little cold-blooded for that. But The Shining is a fascinating film because of all the the symbolic language. America is built on a big vat of blood.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
And there's all this Native American symbols everywhere.
Yep.
Textiles, and it couldn't be clearer that film has an axe to grind that the book did not have.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. Sure, yeah.
And that is just amazing. But it all seems pretty. And Eyes Wide Shut the book is even more startling than,
right, yeah.
than the film. But as far as trying to unravel reality, for me, trying to unravel reality, if I want, it would be Winter Kills. Have you ever seen that?
No, I don't think so.
It's a film that was released in the early 70s after the Kennedy assassination, and it's about the assassination of a Robert F. Kennedy type figure.
Oh.
And so it was.
Oh, is that with Sinatra?
No, that's called the Sinatra one's much earlier.
Yeah.
What's that called? I can't think of the name.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a 1972-ish.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
74-ish maybe. But it was marketed as a thriller, then pretty much taken off the market because people didn't want to see, it was a little too close to home.
Right, yeah.
But the thing is, it's a comedy.
Huh.
And when I first saw it, I was just amazed. I was like, wait a second, this is a comedy. Yeah. And it's just that it covers pretty much every conspiracy theory from the Kennedy assassination on.
Well.
It's just a mind boggler. Like basically Anthony Perkins is running the world from a huge observatory. and they're trying to get Jeff Bridges, who's a kind of a ne'er-do-well brother, to find the assassin of his older brother who'd been running for president.
Wow.
But they all know. So really what they want to do is somehow turn him into a hero so he can be president. But it's even I'm simplifying. It's way more elaborate than that. But I always felt like when I was watching that's about as close to probably what I think reality is.
Yeah.
as people sending people off on missions where they already know the answers.
Yeah.
So they make people search for them, find them, and then it was basically all a game, and people feel a certain way suddenly. have a certain opinion because they felt like it had been sought out.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, I feel like in the whole conspiracy community, Kubrick is the one that's always brought up, where people love to project so much onto his films. I mean, I guess that's just because there's like these totemic, like American symbols in there. You know, as you mentioned, like the historical trauma in The Shining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I've never really thought of, I mean, I guess individual films, but it seems like there are just as many Kubrick films that don't have that.
Yeah, totally.
I mean,
right.
Dr. Strangelove is pretty straightforward parody, and you know, I'm not sure it gives us any truths. Not that everyone, you know, I think pretty much every lefty felt that way while watching it. Anyway.
Right. yeah.
I don't think it convinced anybody of anything.
yeah.
But I'm not sure anything is revealed there. And then of course there are the noir things. I don't know. I'd have to think about him as some sort of a revelatory filmmaker. It hadn't really occurred to me. I mean, obviously his technique is a revelation. And
yeah.
But I've never really thought of him, I guess, sadly, in any kind of in any kind of bigger concept.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I just think it's interesting that he's the one that's always, especially Eyes Wide Shut, people marvel at the symbols in that, you know. But meanwhile, it's based on a book that was from a very long time ago.
Right, yeah.
And really and from another culture.
Yeah, so, totally. Yeah, I think it's interesting what he changed.
I mean, that's so much about that movie is so much about, or book is so much about psychoanalysis.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and I guess, I mean, yeah, he's not, the things that Kubrick changed from the Dream Story to Eyes Wide Shut are really interesting too.
Yeah, and I mean, he obviously, I mean, I always love that he just, he goes, okay, this is a framework, now let's, explode.
Totally.
I think that's great.
I guess it's better to do it with a writer who's dead. I guess Stephen King was pretty mad about The Shining.
Yes, he was. Although, screw him.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
I think he's come to terms with it over the years that, okay, wait, this is something altogether else.
Right. Well, I think he got his his preferred version with that recent sequel thing, Dr. Sleep.
That probably did it. It's like, okay, Kubrick it is.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Did King produce that?
No, but I think it was approved, cuz
Well, he's
and the idea was let's make the novel,
right.
Let's do it like the novel was done, and no one cared.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't great. No.
I know Stephen King fans who liked it just because all they wanted to see was the plot reenacted verbatim.
Right. Totally, yeah.
They didn't want anything else.
Yeah.
It is kind of funny thinking about The Shining, though, in that context. Like the film Dr. Sleep, which is apparently a sequel to The Shining.
Yeah.
It's funny how the film uses all these things that were straight out of the Kubrick film. I thought that was odd.
Right, yeah.
A lot of the decor and just the general geometric patterns, and it seemed like they were trying to make more of a Stephen King thing, but they didn't want to let go of Kubrick.
Right. Yeah, they tried to combine the two,
right,
the kind of incompatible threads.
Yeah, it seemed that way to me, as if you could do this if you were making a better film.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever see that Room 237 documentary? I mean, it's kind of...
it's weird. Here in Austin, it was incredibly popular, and all of my friends saw it, and somehow I have not seen it.
That's
Should
funny.
I see it?
Well, it's kind of like what we're talking about, where for some reason, the symbols in Kubrick's film, specifically The Shining, which this one's about, it just mesmerizes people, where they want to sort of transpose these different ideas onto the symbols and make it about something else, which some of it, is relevant. Like some parts talk about the historical trauma, which you were mentioning, the Native American symbolism. Then there's other stuff where people are seeing Kubrick's face in the clouds and stuff.
Oh, yeah, and the moon landing stuff is a big part of it too.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, tell me more about the moon landing.
Wow, there's the part with the patterns on the floor, and the kid.
He's wearing the Apollo sweater.
Apollo sweater.
Oh, he's wearing that. That's right.
Yeah.
Now you're going to make me watch The Shining again. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, that's the time of year for it.
Speaking of conspiracy films like that, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but another one of my favorites is Twinkle Twinkle Killer Kane.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that. Yeah.
Ninth Configuration is what it was released on video as.
Huh. When is that from?
It's directed by William Peter Blatty.
Oh wow.
Who wrote The Exorcist?
Yeah.
And I wish he directed a lot more movies.
I didn't know he directed anything.
The Exorcist 3 is my favorite of the Exorcists by far.
Hmm.
But Ninth Configuration is about insane astronauts that have gone mad.
Wow.
And in the Great Northwest, they're all in an asylum.
Whoa.
Huh.
That sounds great. Damn.
Yeah.
Oh, it's got some just amazing things in it. It's gorgeous. It stars Stacy Keach and Scott Wilson, who's in The Walking Dead too, and one of my favorite actors.
Huh.
And, Jason Miller, who's in The Exorcist. But it's an astounding film. I'm not sure. There's no moon landing conspiracy in it like there is in Capricorn 1. I don't know if you've seen that. It's okay with James Brolin. That actually is about doing a Mars landing on a soundstage.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah. I didn't see that.
But Ninth Configuration, I would highly recommend. It's very spiritual too. There's a scene where Christ is crucified on the moon. And
wow. Yeah. That sounds great.
It's very, very good.
I've seen that still before.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that still's awesome.
Huh.
I gotta watch that.
Yeah. I need to watch that soon. Yeah.
We should check that out after this.
Yeah.
I guess we sort of talked about it earlier with Smith and anger, but I was curious if there were any films to you that sort of transcended the realm of fantasy, or sort of like the just the visual use of mysticism and the occult, and which you saw becoming more spiritual, like communicating with the viewers on a abstract spiritual level. For me personally, I would think of like Stalker, something like Tarkovsky.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying there. I wasn't prepared for that question.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I certainly see what you mean. This kind of where the film, I guess. Yeah. Tarkovsky was incredibly good at that. What's happening is mystical,
right?
But he never lets it be faux mystical, because he never is specific enough about. And that's always the problem with making a mystical film, I guess, is, you go one step over the line and it's ridiculous, or it looks hokey, or, but I mean, like, to keep things in check where you're only given enough information to stay on the spiritual level. I can think of a film that does that for me besides Tarkovsky's and that's Innocence, which is a Eastern European film, and it's based on a Frank Wedekind play, and an old German play from the eras we're talking about, the turn of the century, fin du siècle. But what happens is it's a private school where new kids arrive in coffins. And are taken out of the coffins and then slowly groomed. But the whole thing seems like just a dream. And I mean, like, the coffin you'd think would kind of nail it into some kind of film, like this is a horror film or a fantasy film, but it never explains anything or gets too deep. It just remains mystical. It remains a mystery all the way through. Yeah. And a really haunting one.
Wow.
Especially since it's mostly little kids. It's like they are a part, because, they have no way of, trying to talk about what's happening to them. This is just their lives. So they're just going through these very strange rituals without questioning them.
Huh. Yeah. Wow. That's fascinating.
So that comes to mind as a kind of, as a film that seems incredibly mystical. Yeah. Without taking us to a point where something is literal minded.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if Lynch's films do that for people as well.
You mentioned Lynch a few times, and I really, obviously, I think probably I love Lynch, and Mulholland Drive is one of my favorite Hollywood Gothics.
Yeah. Yep.
In fact, there's so much in it that I remember when Margot Kidder had gone insane at one point. This was in the early 2000s, I think. And she'd started crawling through backyards in Hollywood.
Oh my God.
And like someone had seen her. And I just thought that when I saw Mulholland Drive, I was like, wow, this is it. You know, because there's a scene that are so much like that.
Yep.
You know, and I just that to me is just a fantastic Hollywood Gothic.
Yeah,
about as good as it gets. You know?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the TV pilot? I was going to watch that tonight. Apparently, that was meant to be a TV series.
Yeah, I didn't know the pilot was available.
Yeah, the pilot showed up on a streaming service on Karagarga actually.
Huh.
That's crazy.
So I downloaded it and I'm going to check it out tonight.
Nice.
Yeah, I've always meant to see that. Yeah.
Come over. I have drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take the bus down.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Mulholland Drive's a terrifying one. Lynch is he really excels in just getting to the core of something like very existential, obviously, but just terrifyingly existential.
Agreed. I think sometimes you can go. I mean, actually, you might like this more because there's a kind of. It might make a better Tarkovsky film, but Inland Empire is my least favorite.
Yeah.
David Lynch film, just because it's very repetitive, like many Tarkovsky films are.
Right.
And I don't like that as much, but I feel like it will age well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, that one is almost inscrutable completely.
Yeah. That's. I just felt like when I saw it twice in the theaters, and I just couldn't help getting bored, and I don't get bored very easily.
Right.
I just felt like I was seeing the same image over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see.
I wanted to be surprised, and I wasn't.
Yeah.
Although the rabbits were surprising.
Yeah, that part was awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, and like on the other end of the spectrum, with like, what do you think of stuff like the stuff that like verges on like the pornographic, like Jean Roland films, like that kind of? He's definitely using occult things.
I just I love them I love them when they touch on art movements. You know.
Yeah.
I love them when they start reading from Flowers of Evil.
Right.
Or they even show Flowers of Evil on a table.
Yeah.
You know, I love it when the dots are connected in.
Totally.
You know, or there's a painting on the wall that I know, or
yeah.
You know, so that it transforms all the other maybe some semi-ridiculous things into something more elevated.
Right.
And while that, you know, there were people who would argue with me and say, well, that's, you know, it's meant to elevate crap. That's what it's doing. But I disagree. I think seeing these little omens around in those films just absolutely they grab me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now suddenly I'm looking at the film in a whole different way.
Right.
You know, suddenly it's an art film. You know, like Robe Grillet does the same, and they're just. I love those art films that have. There's so many from the early 70s and from the late 60s you could write a whole book about the presence of Fleur de Mal in films from the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
It's just endless, or actually you could go back further than that. But I love it when that appears. And I love it when people start saying things about cruelty and, cruelty and transcendence, and when people start using the whole perverse language,
right,
I'm just locked in. You know, when people start talking like that and the images are violent or pornographic, I feel like a hymn in my head. It's just I just feel like suddenly I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Right. Yeah. It activates that whole that decadent thing. Yeah. That giant.
True. Yeah.
That machine turns on or something. Yeah.
It does, and suddenly everything's kicking in me. You know?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
We haven't really talked about Jodorowsky's stuff. Where do you come down on that?
Oh.
I liked Jodorowsky until I didn't.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't. It's so strange thinking of a guy who can now pretty much make anything he wants, and the choices he makes now seem odd.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, back when he had to, stay on a budget and had to struggle for every penny. he was making these, something like Holy Mountain that
Yep.
just,
blows
you away. And now when he wouldn't really have to do that, I would imagine anyone would hand him several $1 million to make a movie without thinking about it much.
Yeah.
Right.
But yet he makes kind of dull. I like Santa Sangre because of the themes in it, but it's not my favorite Jodorowsky really.
Yeah.
I feel like it's still trying a little hard when it was so effortless before. Although calling his films effortless is weird, considering
Right.
Holy Mountain seems so full of effort, but it also seems like, oh, here's a trip, here's more of a trip, here's something else that's really a trip.
Yeah.
It seems excited, it seems jittery.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that.
Santa Sangre doesn't seem as jittery to me.
Mm-hmm.
I love that in those early ones.
Neither does anything after that.
He can like pull off sort of being heavy-handed, which is kind of hard to do.
Yeah. Well, and it takes a lot to bum me out heavy-handedness, because I see a huge crucifix in a room and I'm excited. It's like, oh, now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
Or so a bleeding Christ on a gnarled cross.
Right.
I'm just so there. I mean, as you could probably tell, I'm a lapsed Catholic. And Catholic school.
Yeah.
And I mean, that sort of thing is what I love, or same as an autumn cemetery. They're just things that are always gonna, I mean, I think many of my friends, would see that huge crucifix and go, oh, that again.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I usually study it pretty closely after that.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think's the spookiest film you've seen?
Oh, spooky! I really love The Innocents, Jack Clayton movie based on Turn of the Screw.
Yeah, I have to watch that one.
That movie scares the poop out of me.
Yeah,
it's on my list this
year. It's always a strange talking about being scared by movies when you're an adult, because that's not quite what happens anymore.
Right. Yeah.
I don't jump. I mean, I jump if something. I mean, I'll jump at a jump scare, but that's pretty easy. It just startled me is all. But as far as being really creeped out, I get more creeped out by weird emotions, by really histrionic family melodramas now than anything else.
Right.
Like those things really creep me out.
Right.
Like Douglas Sirk films, or some some late period, some Bergman films. Just creepy to me. These people acting this way and being so cruel to one another. And,
right.
The family is really what creeps me out these days.
Yeah. Understood.
But as far as so it's when you talk about films that scare you as an adult, it's kind of dicey, because it's just harder to be scared.
I hear you
totally.
Yeah.
But so we say something else. I guess we say we're scared, but what we mean is that's a creepy thing to see, or that's, And I love Argento. I love Cronenberg. I loved Cronenberg in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care for him that much now. And the black and white things, those old black and white shockers, like The Innocents, and Seance on a Wet Afternoon, things where the atmosphere is just so thick, or there's just this, haze over everything.
Yeah.
Those films, I mean, it's or anything where the ghost is something you don't ever quite get a handle on.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Although people have started lately to make films like that are that seem like self-help books. Kind of starting with The Sixth Sense, where, I mean, sure, this kid could, help people with his gift, but he's still seeing dead people everywhere.
Right.
I mean, you can't act like he's not damaged.
Right.
And there was one about mothers recently, like mothers and daughters and a granddaughter in the same house. And it was like, and it was at the end, it turned into, basically a bonding exercise. And that's just not what I want from my horror.
Right. Sure. Right.
I don't want a self-help book. Just, in fact, I prefer everyone were dead at the end, really.
Right. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Except for the ghosts who linger in the windows.
Yeah. They can hang out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. I always think of The Vanishing. Have you seen that film?
Yes. Yeah. That's creepy. And that's another thing that can really creep me out, is serial killers are, that's
right.
Or just, that kind of thing is messed up. I mean, so that sort of thing can still give me the creeps too. I guess I was like supernatural things don't really,
right.
They don't scare me anymore. Like
Right.
I don't stay, I don't watch one and then not be able to turn off the lights or.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Vanishing, and I'm trying to think there were some other good serial killer films that were really super creepy. There's one is it called Clean?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Peter Green, and it's all from this weird, it's filmed so strangely as if his brain's shorting out through most of the movie.
Oh, no.
And he's a serial killer. And that creeped me out. I guess knowing that what if your brain just shorted out and
Yeah.
you were this, you know?
Yeah.
I guess the idea that it could happen to you, you know, or what if, or the eternal question, maybe I am a serial killer and just don't know it.
Oh,
Right, yeah.
True.
Yeah.
And one day a body will be connected to me somehow and I'll just be completely confused.
Yeah, all that they bring up all that identity stuff in those kinds of movies. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes
That's
that just
crazy.
gets busy, you know,
Right.
like they put the past and the future in a blender.
Yeah.
I don't care about that so much. You know?
Yeah. What was that one where it was backwards? The
Yeah.
Memento.
Memento.
When it's just a gimmick to show that the filmmaker can
Right.
slice and dice things together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like in The Vanishing, just the lack of accountability makes it so dreadful. It just like stinks. It stays with you after you watch
Yes,
it.
and the idea that he just has to know this. I mean, it's just the masochism of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a troubling.
Yeah. I have a hard time with the serial killer movies sometimes, and
And there's so many bad ones too.
Right.
But,
Oh, for sure.
but it seems like those can still get under my skin if they're done really well.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
And without gimmicks, you know, if they're just even some episodes of The Mindhunter creep me out.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Fincher's TV series.
Yeah.
It kind of freaked me out a little bit. I mean, I guess because the actors that played the serial killers were very good. I mean, really intense actors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And listening to them talk, I don't know, whatever research they did for that, sometimes listening to those guys talk creeped me out a little bit.
Yeah.
You know? The idea of like somehow meeting a person like this and not knowing what they're really thinking.
Sure.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I'm really scared about either being a serial killer or being killed by a serial killer.
Right. Well, yeah.
I'm
That's
just unnerved by the whole thing.
that's like the big American. I mean, maybe not anymore, but the big American fear. Yeah, the serial killer.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's like anymore.
Right.
Doesn't seem to really come up that much.
No.
Although we don't know. I saw one the other day that documentary type thing that threatened to. It never panned out, but threatened to link almost every serial killing that was unsolved, like in the last 10 years.
Oh my
It was
God.
like a truck stop killer, but it just kept cycling out into the world. Like maybe this guy killed these guys too.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So if that guy gets caught, I'll be scared again.
Right.
Because then we'll know that they can just stay underground forever.
Yeah. It seems like it moved to like the whole mass murder thing became kind of the American style.
Yeah, that's interesting calling it the American style. I think that's true. Yeah. It's like America had the style of serial killing during the 70s, and then now its style is gun-toting lunatics,
Right. Yeah.
while killing bunches of as many innocent people as they can shoot. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like
I like the idea of calling that a style, and it's true.
yeah.
Not too many films about it yet, though, are there?
No, there was a Rampage, which was like, did you ever see that?
No.
I haven't seen it either.
That was, I mean, yeah, it almost felt predictive because it was before that became like a huge thing. It was just a guy
Oh,
trying.
it was the Friedkin film, wasn't it?
Maybe. I kind of remember it like it's like a dream. It was a really scary.
I feel like I heard about that movie but didn't see it.
It was just a guy trying to kill as many people as possible. It was very unpleasant.
Well, and then there's the Charles Whitman Tower movie.
Right. Yeah.
About the tower here.
Yeah.
Which is always. I mean, I grew up in Nebraska, and Charles Starkweather was our. Once a year there'd be a huge Starkweather thing. I grew up drinking on his grave and whatnot. Martin Sheen bought the tombs. He didn't have a tombstone, or someone had stolen the tombstone. Martin Sheen bought him a gravestone.
Whoa.
after making Badlands.
Yep.
Yeah, but Starkweather there and here, and every year at Starkweather anniversary, they'll pull up all this new stuff about Starkweather. But the same here, it's Whitman,
Yeah.
When you were out in Los Angeles yourself, did you encounter any like sort of cults or occult groups or anything like that?
Well, practitioners.
Yeah.
You know, I met a lot of people who were into it. The problem was I was working at Fantagraphics Books, and this was 89, 90, and the scene was kind of going towards that serial killer Manson worship thing that kind of took over the 90s. Yeah. And it seemed kind of silly to me, everyone wearing a Manson t-shirt.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm into that stuff, but it seemed like the way, I mean, it was leading to some really crappy rock and roll.
True.
It kind of, so I met a lot of people who were super into that stuff. You know, but the people I met in Austin were actually a little creepier, like true cultists. And when did you ever hear about the yogurt shop murders here?
Yeah, what was that? Was that recent?
Girls were killed. Were killed at a yogurt shop one night. Young girls, teenagers, 5 of them, I think.
Oh,
and burned.
Whoa!
And they never did. They have some people in jail, but almost everyone thinks they didn't do it. And but the reason I bring it back to that was there were a lot of occultists in town during that, and the police just went nuts looking for, you know, people in black. They're rounding up goths, you know. Wow. And it turned out these, you know, the people that were involved, even, you know, just by description, were just, you know, ragtag idiots. So it really got scary. Like there were, you know, people were hiding all their skeletons and altars, you know, that they had in their basement. This was during Butthole Surfers days.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Weird. Austin was definitely weird then. You know?
Yeah.
But in LA, things had gotten. I got to meet Kenneth Anger, and I got to meet some of his friends. I got to meet Curtis Harrington, and I got to meet some old school occultists, and they were all wonderful. I mean, they were just great. And the gay community had a real undercurrent of occultism. At least, you know, around Kenneth Anger, around Curtis Harrington.
Yeah.
And this seemed pretty old school to me, which was better than this new Manson worship thing that was going on. You know, but so I kind of was. So I kind of wasn't into what the young people were doing with occultism. It all seemed pretty phony to me. I mean, it seemed like they were just still trying to distress their parents more than anything else.
Sure. Yeah, that's an easy way to do it, I guess.
Yeah. But the old people I met that had been involved in occultism were in LA occultism were really, really wonderful and knew far more than I'll ever know about the occult.
Yeah.
Incredibly well read and well versed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's just always been permeating culture on the West Coast a lot more out in the open than it is here, and it just seems like the occult has all these sort of public threads there where it's
when I was going through old movie magazines as research, there were magazines from the teens that were already talking about all the occultists in LA.
Yeah.
Wow.
That were already talking about all the, you know, the mind readers and the spiritualists and either condemning them or praising them, or, you know, it was kind of it was strange because it was this, you know, just almost a constant in every issue until once again we get to the Hays Code.
Yep.
Right.
You know, and then, you know, it seemed to drive all the real weirdness underground.
Yeah. What do you think of like the founding of Hollywood kind of story? I mean, that's you know, popularly like, you know, like a bunch of, especially like Jewish like businessmen sort of went out there and founded it. But like then there's other narratives of it being like somehow kind of mystical, like Hollywood, like, you know, all this like
the wood of the holly.
Right. Yeah. What do you think of that? Like the myth of Hollywood's founding? Well,
I love that stuff. I feel like Hollywood was such a practical concern from the beginning that it doesn't really need a mystical, you know?
Yeah.
But since it's always been home to a strong occultist community, or at least other believers in things besides Christianity.
Right.
Paganism and whatnot. It just, there's probably a reason for that, but a lot of that reason is the whole reason Hollywood really started, which is that people had to go somewhere from their horror. I mean, people just had to get away from the, Dust Bowl.
Yep. Yep.
So, and plus there was the idea you could start again in California.
Right.
Everybody was starting over.
Yep.
And you could get lost. You could change your name. You could become a different person. You could become, and even better, you could become a star.
Right. Yeah.
And which is a whole different, you could become a different being.
Yeah.
As I think probably Crowley would say,
Totally.
You could become a whole different thing.
Yep.
And so I think that practicality, the practical nature of Hollywood just springing out of the desert, between mountains and an ocean, led to it being an escape hatch for weirdos.
Yep.
Who had nowhere else to go.
Huh. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, they're probably weird. They probably have a history of weirder people in San Francisco by far.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
But LA has more of a spotlight on it.
Right.
Yeah. And now, I mean, San Francisco is like a weird, like, sort of the whole tech thing. Like, it's like a control station for the world right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just, the people I've met, I lived in San Francisco for a while too, but the people I met in San Francisco, the older people who were kind of the first, had come with $5 in their pockets and somehow became millionaires.
Yeah.
Those guys were weird and had like real stories of hanging out with, mom and with like all these writers. And it just seemed like the pack was a lot more elite in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And you had Anton LaVey and
right.
I think San Francisco is a much stranger town, and it feels a little spookier to me actually when I'm there. There are neighborhoods of San Francisco that feel a lot spookier to me than any neighborhood in LA.
Yeah. That makes sense. And they had that earthquake too. So they're,
Yeah. Well, there are 2 earthquakes. But yeah.
Right.
I was actually there during the overpass collapse, and we lived about 4 blocks from there.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
During the earthquake. So yeah, there are certainly, it seems like a more haunted city to me.
Right.
LA. LA seems somehow scarier.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It seems a little more brutal.
Yeah.
But San Francisco seems spookier.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe the industry of Hollywood is and Los Angeles is just like by its nature a bit more exploitative of humans than San Francisco.
You made a very good point. The idea that there are human sacrifices every day.
Yeah.
Whether they're metaphorical or not.
Yep.
Sometimes they're not. Sometimes people are exploited to their last, till they kill themselves.
Right.
Right. And there's such a history of that. Yeah.
They're basically pushed off the Hollywood sign.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. That's terrifying. That's a terrifying aspect of LA.
Yeah.
Is just all these lonely people who wanted something so badly being sacrificed.
Yeah.
To a death cult,
Yeah.
Right,
and there's a lot of death cultism in LA.
I guess Mulholland Drive, captures that pretty well.
Yep.
And there are, just all these weird things in LA. Like there are guys who still think they're Valentino, and after Valentino died, there were just seance after seance after seance.
Yeah.
After Houdini's death, they did Houdini's seance on top of the Roosevelt Hotel in LA.
Yeah.
Wow.
That used to be released as a LP like every other year.
Really? He must have hated that.
With a new cover on it. You can hear it on YouTube. You can hear it on YouTube.
Wasn't he a big debunker of seances?
Yeah.
But it's just, there's so many seances and just,
right.
Definitely just the level of useless death in LA is grim.
Right.
Well, there was like a cult of Valentino, right? At his
there
tomb.
Was. Yeah, there was. And there was, but cults for, so many, like Jean Harlow when she died, people, there are all these records made, about their deaths, and then people, and with Valentino, of course, you get the person coming, the weird lady who's at his beer in the funeral home.
Mm-hmm.
and visits his tomb, and there's just so. I mean, yeah, there seems to be an elaborate. I mean, it's all very individual because it's all based on certain stars, but the level of death cultism in LA is pretty high.
I guess we still have that today too. I mean, to us, like with Heath Ledger and people like that. Like, but
it's aesthetically less interesting,
right? Totally,
yeah, sure, and probably not as based in seances and things.
No, it's more like
unless there's something I don't know about that.
No, I think it's more
true,
like in memoriam type stuff. Not
right. Yeah, just people who've never given up on River Phoenix and
yeah. It's interesting, though, because it, as you mentioned, sort of the metaphorical death cult of Hollywood, it's like truth is stranger than any sort of fiction most of the time,
Mm-hmm. Well, it wouldn't... I know this is going to be odd, but I don't think it's that far of a reach to, get to an almost Shining-like thing with Hollywood, the idea that, that it runs on blood, that there's just there's a vat of blood underneath it, and that's what's greasing the gears.
Yeah.
That's what's making it go.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it would be hard to make a case against that.
Yeah.
I mean, and you see and just insanity too. Like, there's all these actresses that say you liked when, in the 80s or something like that, and you wondered what happened to them, and then you see them and they look like they're crazy. And then you realize they were probably all raped.
Right? Yeah. Well, there's casting couch.
And suddenly
stuff,
it's just this, well, of course they became this. Imagine the things they went through.
Right. Yeah. Massively.
So what you expect them to stay beautiful and well dressed when they know that their life's a horrible sham.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It just sometimes. I mean, there's something ghastly about the whole place for sure. I mean, a James Ellroy type ghastliness.
Right. Totally. Huh.
That's a heck of a spot to. Should we duck out here?
Yeah, I guess we can wrap it up.
Yeah.
I hope I gave you enough to work with.
Oh, of course.
Totally.
Definitely.
Really awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah.
It was my pleasure, seriously.
Yeah. And so what, I guess we'll look out for some of those books in the future, right? Yeah.
Do look out for books, and just check, there'll be announcements of these things on the Facebook page and the Twitter account.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll link to all those so, listeners can check that out.
Yeah, thank you. And I wanted to ask you, how long usually before the thing hits the website?
Oh, we should be up on Tuesday.
Yeah, a few days. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe if you could just send me a reminder, that way I'll post it everywhere.
Oh, for sure.
Totally.
And thank you again for coming on. Our film list is definitely expanded.
Yeah.
It was really fun talking to you guys.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Yeah.
Well, good night.
Keep in
touch. All right.
touch.
Thanks.
All right,
keep in touch.
All right. Bye.
That was crazy.
Yeah. Great show.
I feel like the ending was like
dark.
Yeah, no, well, it was like a great, like sort of the meat of the conversation was at the end almost.
Totally.
Like there was so much great stuff mentioned, but like, yeah, I really loved that the real life death cult of Hollywood is almost more interesting than any sort of contrived conspiracy behind Hollywood.
I think that's
the facts of it.
That's usually the case, right? I mean, and we didn't touch on any like CIA involvement in Hollywood, like, which is also real. But I mean, it like just by itself, like just looking at the lives of the people who gave their lives to this thing, it's like, it's dark.
I'm like hard pressed to imagine like films that are like a conspiracy, because like there was that tweet or whatever where it was like all films have one plot and then another plot. It was just like some stupid bot account or whatever, but like
I think that might be like a person masquerading as a bot.
Yeah,
which is funny, but I don't think that's true. I think a lot of films are like
I just wanted
money.
an answer. Like what film besides like Eyes Wide Shut is the one where like,
and even that I'm still on it. I mean, I think that like Kubrick was obvious, like he was winking at like Rothschilds and like Rockefellers and like the like obscenely rich and like what they get up to. But I don't even think that like a intensely close analysis of that film any more than any other Kubrick film will like. I don't think that's going to reveal like any secrets. I think he was just like a very detail oriented director
for sure.
I mean,
yeah, there's like if you wanted to read into it as much as some people do, like there's the over the rainbow symbolism, but then you have to get into like all the monarch stuff and
right. And I mean, I wonder because then like if that's what he was talking about, I just feel like it opens so many boxes to like imagine that he like so he knew about mind controlled like humans like these slaves.
I don't know. I feel like it's just like
it just opens these doors that like
it's fun to read about, and sometimes the argument is almost convincing where they talk about like the NASA lenses which he was lent to work on Space Odyssey and then the moon landing
that's
stuff.
Kind of crazy. I mean,
yeah, it's funny to put it all together, and like I don't know, maybe sometimes like you get in the headspace where you could make a case for it, but
yeah,
I think for the most part people are probably projecting. But
I think so. I mean,
what the hell do I know?
I go back and forth on that stuff, honestly. Sometimes I'm like convinced that like, he faked the moon landing, but other days I'm like, why? Like, I don't think so. I don't know.
I could see every reason for the moon landing being faked.
Me too. There's that. Have you read? There's a great David McGowan piece, which is just like this really long essay about why the moon landing was definitely faked. And that's like incredibly convincing. But if you spend some time like away from the literature and like just it's like maybe it doesn't make as much sense as it does when you're reading like conspiracy stuff.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense because the Russians were up there right before and then we were like, all right, we got to do this. But I don't understand the technology. Like how did they do the film transmissions and stuff?
I don't understand. That's kind of the whole McGowan thing is like
when did they film it? Oh, fuck. I don't know enough about this.
No,
like I don't know enough to justify why it's a conspiracy.
Right.
Because
we should do an episode on
was it live?
I thought
how the hell did that work? Was it like radio signals, radio visual signals?
I'm sure some like huge like science nerd can correct us.
We should. I'm gonna leave this whole part in because this is hilarious.
Yeah. We're recording this in intense green light.
Yeah, it's been green for like 2 hours.
Yeah. I thought that was a great interview, though.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. And lots of movies to watch now. That Ninth Configuration sounds really great.
That's still of Jesus crucified on the moon. Yeah, I remember that. That's awesome.
Yeah. We've done 3 interviews in a row, which is cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I mean, I guess next time we're doing demons.
Yeah, well, next episode will be about demonic possession and a great new book which just got released, and we'll post more details about that soon, but it's definitely scaring the dickens out of me thus far.
Demons, yeah.
Scaring the demons into me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. The moon landing, was it fake?
I don't know. I hope so.
I would have felt embarrassed asking
him if he thinks the moon landing is fake. Yeah, maybe not.
A momentous event in human history. Like,
it's so it's like you can't tell. Like, it depends on the day. Like if it's like an embarrassing line of thought, or if it's like it feels like a legitimate inquiry.
A lot of people believe it. I just don't understand how was the. It sounds stupid as hell here, but how was the transmission? Like, how did they do the live transmission?
I think it must have been some kind of because it was like the thing was that it was like live broadcasted to like America, right?
Yeah,
and everybody was like like glued to their television sets.
Yeah. So what kind of technology is that? Like a radio signal or something? I'm going to leave all this in.
Okay. Yeah, we should. Yeah.
Getting to that point. Pop an ad in right here while we look up the moon landing broadcast.
I don't think anybody wants to advertise yet. But someday. once we syndicate.
Apollo 11, the greatest single broadcast in television history.
Oh, so I guess people have thought about it.
Television camera mounted on its side. Huh.
You gonna leave this part in?
Yeah, just reading template.
People will listen while you're just like sitting there reading.
Just making mouth sounds. This becomes an ASMR podcast.
Huh. I don't think I could make ASMR sounds if I was like forced to.
Well, I'm not. Oh, damn! This picture is awesome.
Apollo 11.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. The acceleration of technology seemed incredible. It seems incredible to me too, right now.
Unless they had geniuses like Stanley on board.
Yeah. I mean, if it is fake, they did a great job of like fuzzing it up, making it look like goofy. You know?
Right.
What are the arguments for that it's fake? They're like, there's no stars. You would be able to see stars, and then it's like the camera wouldn't be able to detect stars.
Yeah, everything that someone brings up for why it's fake, there's an answer to. But then there's also an answer to that. It's like it's back and forth forever.
I like the one where it's like the flag is something about the flag.
Oh, like there's wind or something.
Yeah,
like but there shouldn't be wind.
Right.
There was like a good answer for that too. I don't know.
Me neither.
It seems kind of in the end like it doesn't really affect me. If it was like a Cold War like op, like fine, like that makes sense. I can imagine that being like a legitimate avenue.
Yeah, well, for that's kind of where I would fall on it. Like, obviously, that would be the intent,
right?
But I think for me personally, like any given day, I could believe a conspiracy, for a couple minutes.
Totally, it's fun.
Yeah. All right. Well.
So great interview. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, we're gonna be back with a really spooky one, hopefully
for Halloween.
Yeah.
Hallow Eve. Sam Hain.
Samhain.
Yeah, but Sam Hain is funny.
All right.
All right. Peace.